Hi, my name's Dean Ashton. I'm a media and English and Humanities teacher at Northcote High School, and I am incredibly passionate about using video games in the classroom to really enhance some, student excitement and learning. Oh, maybe a lapsed gamer. So I kind of describe myself as somebody who grew up loving video games, and I suppose time has made enemies of us all. But because I don't have as much time to game, so I kind of leverage that in the classroom. So I've got an excuse to play. So, so yeah, I do love video games and just gameplay, and I guess that sort of thing generally. I've mostly been playing these indie narrative games that I managed to source from a variety of locations. So, mainly because it's a good excuse to use in the classroom because that's what we've been studying. So, games like Her Story. We were looking at a number of, just all sorts of offbeat interactive websites, even, which are kind of game-ish these days as well, which have been really fun to play with. But if I have a bit of an abundance of time, then I get on the PlayStation and I will look at some of the more traditional big AAA games that are out there at the moment. For me, I've always been really connected with how the active gameplay changes how you take a story, and I get really excited by those elements. I guess as a media teacher, especially, we really like the narrative is key. So something with a really good storyline is something I like to interact with, and I get really like jazzed about it. I know that one of my sort of, I guess, fondest memories playing a game is that I almost teared up at the end of one of the Final Fantasy games because you've been spending 100 hours or something just slogging through this big story that you just can't get in any other media format, and the connection you have to the characters in the game, it just made me really sad when the ending was a bit bittersweet. Because I've always had an interest in gaming, and because it's such a big industry, I kind of think to myself, well, why aren't we using it more? And the educational opportunities for video games I found really exciting. It allows students to, utilize a little bit about what they know, and it feels unconventional, even though it shouldn't. So it gives them something a little different than just, write an answer on a worksheet and away you go. There's an element of them being a part of it because they're then becoming the players, and that gives them a really strong sense of agency, which I really value in my classes because they can take it in all manner of different directions depending on how you play. And it really, like, I guess for many of my students, they found the experience of using games in the classroom not only engaging, but they found they connected deeper to the content, which I found really useful. So I believe video games can be an incredibly powerful learning tool because the participatory nature and the interactive nature of games uh, can really connect with audiences and students well. So it gives them an opportunity to really explore deeply some of the themes and content that you might be trying to teach. Whether it's something structural like building something, or whether it is a connection to character or story that gives them a lot of investment into the learning that they're doing. If you're playing a game just for like the skill and the interest of it, so like let's say a shooting game or an online game where you're competing against someone, it's like that enjoyment factor of wielding a skill and doing it really well. It'd be similar to, I used to play basketball quite a lot, and I love getting out there on the court and playing, but being it's a similar sort of function to that when you're playing a competitive video game of that sort. And it's just a good way of relaxing your mind from all the other things that are out there and just focusing on that one thing. And then when it comes to like say a story where it's different to a movie is I guess in the way it really allows you to experience and invest yourself in characters for a much longer period of time than you would a conventional film. And you have a lot more, control over how that story develops, which I think is really interesting.
Lonnie came over today, but everything was different. She was sitting at my desk chair, and she wouldn't look at me. Finally, I asked her what was going on. She said she felt like she'd done something wrong that night in the city. Like I must think. But I said no. There was nothing wrong. I just wanted to say... But I couldn't find the words. I felt like I was gonna cry, but I wasn't sad. She got up and sat next to me on the bed. I looked at her. Lonnie, do you think...
I find for my students that they've been able to connect with the content even if they're not necessarily gamers, because games aren't just what you traditionally think of as a game. So it's not just, shoot zombies or play Tetris or something like that. So choosing the right game is really important to connecting to those gamers, or not non-gamers, I should say. And I've had a lot of feedback from my students that basically said, I've never really been much of a gamer, but that was really fun. So it does afford a lot of opportunities, even if they're not as experienced in the game world. So what I look for when I'm choosing a game for my classroom is always leaning back on the curriculum and what you're trying to teach. So in our humanities class, it would be, we used it for exploring landforms and landscapes, which is perfect for a platform or a game such as Minecraft, where they're building things like actually affecting the landscape, and the synchronicity there was fantastic. When it comes to my media classes, we always look at the, I guess the particular curriculum standards that we're going for that particular year level, and really focusing on that. So using, if it's, for example, narrative, we choose games that have a strong focus on storytelling and how a unique style. And with both of those in mind, we get something that you can really focus on for your educational outcomes. Some successes playing video games. We've had a few, which is great. Immediately, something that came to mind is a couple of years ago, we used Papers, Please in a classroom, and students got really stressed playing this time-based kind of, I guess, passport control game. And then, we're finding it really fun. And then we hit them with the meaning behind some of this and how it's kind of teaching you morality. And some students clicked and go, oh yeah, I was actually, in order to play the game well, I actually had to become a bit of a prick. And that has a real commentary on how like a real smashing of dystopian rules can actually change somebody's behavior. And they kind of clicked, oh, this is kind of like some parts of society, which I thought was really exciting as an insight. They were playing a game for fun, and they came at it out of it with a lesson on ethics and an understanding of some of the ways the world works, which was an incredible insight for some of those students to have. So there are a number of different skills that I think gamers and players draw on. I think it can't be understated sometimes the social element that comes with playing a game. Playing a game together, especially in a classroom, is a really magical event when it's working really well, because they get excited about what each other's doing, and it could be a skill thing. Oh, shoot this target, and they're like, wow, you did that really well, or you did that silly thing and you broke the game, isn't that cool? So I think there's a really strong social element that isn't as associated with your traditional idea of what a gamer is in like a dark room with a controller, and I think that's really special. So I think some skills that students learn playing games beyond any social or kind of bigger understanding of symbolic meaning is also how enthusiastic they get of trying to do things perfectly. So problem solving becomes a really big factor. How do you get past this boss, or how do you navigate past this puzzle that you have to solve? And it really engages some thinking processes. And in some of those fast-paced competitive games as well, there also is a really strong sporting element to it, like reactiveness and strategy in terms of movement around a space, which I think are really great skills that you can translate into other areas quite well. So, with introducing any game based curriculum into a classroom, you're always going to come up against, I guess, some of those barriers, such as people's, I guess, preordained ideas on what it actually means. And if you can demonstrate the value, I think that goes a really long way to getting some buy in from both the parent community and also other teachers. I know that for one of the outcomes that we did across our Year 8 curriculum for Humanities, was exploring a world in Minecraft, which, already many of the students were familiar with because they're always playing it in class when they shouldn't. But they also gave a lot of enthusiastic feedback. So once we ran that as an assessment, not only were a lot of the students highly engaged, but they gave lots of good outcomes. So that gives a lot of buy-in for teachers. They know they can handle how it works. And they see the educational value in it once they, see that spark light up in students' eyes. And I think for many parents, they might have felt a little apprehensive letting kids play games at first. But when they see that it's for not only homework and like it's actually, instead of nonsense games that waste time, they feel like they're actually gaming for a purpose, which I think goes a long way for a lot of the parents. It's not just mindless activity, it's something that actually can further a student's understanding. You'll find that for many parents, the buy-in goes up quite a bit when you outline those educational outcomes that you're focusing. It's not just game for game's sake, it's for X, Y, and Z reasons. And I've found very little pushback from my school community to that process. One of the challenges with games-based learning, I guess, is getting access to all the materials. We're lucky in the sense that every student at our school has a device, and because we're a government school, we already have some licenses been purchased for us, such as Minecraft, that students can access for free. So, the threshold for I guess the barriers to entry are relatively low. When it comes to, I guess, for my media classes, we have customized texts, which you do have to be very selective so that it's not a financial burden. I know one of the main games that we used recently was about $5 or so as an app you could get on your phone. So that's super easy for students to, engage with, and it's, almost the price of a cup of coffee. But certainly, I mean, if we had to buy $90 license for every single game, for every single student in our class, then that would become pretty prohibitive. But luckily we have enough budget that we could afford things like that, and with enough forward planning, and I guess there are a lot of free stuff out there as well that you can access. It's just a matter of finding it and making sure it suits your purposes. For many of my students, I think they don't necessarily have an understanding of what the opportunities are in becoming a game designer. And I think some of the uses of gameplay and video games in a classroom has certainly opened their eyes to some of those possibilities, because we do showcase quite a lot of indie producers and actually quite a lot of Australian, like locally made ones as well. And they kind of have that little sparkle sometimes where they're like, oh, maybe this is something that I could do. But yeah, I think there's an element of just not being aware of those opportunities, and that certainly steeping more in that world by playing video games and also talking about the industry, I think really does open up those ideas. My top tips for getting started with a video game is to, I guess, be fearless. It might seem like an unusual space to be in if you're not used to it, but the advantages become really clear once you dip into that space. Many students already know a lot about this, so they will actually work with you and help you through it because they'll be invested in playing it too. So I do think that, don't be afraid of the technological side of things. There's so many easy ways and and platforms that you can choose that simplify the process. And it's just taking that, being brave enough to make that first step, I think, will sell you on the idea already. So. So, a library of lessons that you can call on at whim is absolutely mission critical for teachers who are already pushed for time. It goes a long way having a resource that spells out the processes and any of the, like, I guess, barriers that you might face, and also the opportunities and the focus points, so that, I guess, what we like is we don't need to necessarily think as much. And it becomes a great big scavenger hunt when you're trying to look for resources, and having something that's in a one single location is an invaluable asset. So Acme's game lessons are an incredible resource for teachers. Their content is created by teachers. They've been workshopped in the classroom. We know it works. And it gives you an incredible resource to call upon in order to navigate this space.